Tonight, Eye on the Bay takes you here. But do you have any idea where here is?
It's just a fascinating place to be a naturalist.
And they're a global treasure.
But we're also in the Richmond district, meaning San Franciscans have
One of the most important wildlife areas in the country and even in the world as part of their city limits.
and yet almost no San Franciscan will ever set foot on it.
We're your Gotta Get Away for the Day guide, your Let's Try a New Place to Eat guide, even your Hey, it really happened here guide. We're the tour guide with you in mind. Eye on the Bay.
I'm Brian Hackney. Tonight, Eye on the Bay takes an epic trip to a part of San Francisco that you can't set foot on and you can only rarely see. And yet, it's right out there. On a really clear day, you might have spied them on the western horizon, and you'd see why. The Spanish word for them means rocky peaks sticking out of the ocean. And if you think the Farallones are hard to see, wait till you see what you have to do just to get to them. That was not pleasant. It's all part of our adventure to the largest seabird colony in the lower 48 states. But as you'll see, a trip to the Farallones begins with a trip to the grocery store.
5 pounds of whole wheat flour,
Hazelnuts, excellent.
Russ Bradley
3 dozen eggs,
and Christy Nelson are roaming the aisles of their local Safeway and stocking up.
Excuse me, you have any yellow squash?
But they're not so much at home in these aisles
Oh.
as they are in these aisles. Russ Bradley manages the Farallones program for PRBO, the Point Reyes Bird Observatory. Christy studies gulls here at the islands, along with up to 7 other scientists.
Thanks very much.
As for what they're doing here,
we're resupplying our small research station on Southeast Farallon Island with food and supplies and gas and all the things that we need to make that island run.
this is all happening at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon.
We're flying here, like we're doing well, which is a good thing.
Yes.
And since it takes 4 hours to make the passage to the Farallones,
What else?
you can't just forget to pick up something at the grocery store. And after the checker rings up a $500 grocery bill,
Mission accomplished.
it's a twice-a-month ritual for the group. One that PRBO's been doing for decades.
How long has PRBO actually been studying stuff on the island?
Well, PRBO has been on the Farallon Islands every day continuously since 1968. We're looking at things like how animals survive, how they reproduce, what they eat, and how those things change through time.
14 feet, all right. Thank you very much for that info.
And you've got to keep these researchers going. So with everything from
Blue cheese.
to a prescription for the patch, we're ready to answer the question,
You ready to go to the Farallones?
I'm ready to go to the Farallones. So are they, by the way, because after shopping, they've loaded all that stuff aboard plastic boxes, driven it from Petaluma down here to the Sausalito docks, and we're loading it on board that, our boat for the trip, the Simba.
Can you believe how warm it is?
And now it's time to meet Captain Paul Dines.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. What time are we leaving?
We will be departing at 0400.
4 a.m.
Oh, dark 30 as it's affectionately known.
So I'm setting an early alarm clock.
Yeah, you are.
All right.
And I'll be here with coffee.
As the sun sank slowly in the west that fateful night, the biologist bedded down aboard the Simba, and I had a special guest at my house.
Good night, David.
Good night, Brian.
Correspondent Dave Stoelk is along to produce and report the trip. It was all so cozy. If only we knew then. Churning seas, shark attacks, gastric distress, and flies, and more flies.
Tomorrow night, we're going to have more on all of these flies that are plaguing us.
It was all just hours away. For you, it's next, as Eye on the Bay's epic trip to the Farallones continues.
See you bright and early.
Yeah, early. Not so bright.
Welcome back to Eye in the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney with a show that has been a year in the making. Our epic trip to the Farallon Islands. I mean, we had to apply for permits a year ago, get official signatures, review documents, and end up by doing something I hope never happens to you. A 3 a.m. alarm.
3 a.m., buddy. Time to go to work.
Oh, God.
We're up. Aboard the Simba, they're waking up. Rise and shine. Morning, Christy. And exactly 3 hours before sunrise.
All right.
We slowly slip out of the docks in Sausalito, with Captain Paul at the helm. At 4:15 a.m., we're sailing through the Sausalito Channel near Simba's top speed.
Right now we're making a little better. We're almost 7 knots.
The plan is to take a well-charted course out the Golden Gate toward the islands.
How long is it going to take us to get out there?
I think 3 or 4 hours. Okay. It's quite a run to get all the way out there.
The Farallones lie 27 miles outside the Golden Gate, 20 miles south of Point Reyes. And yet it wasn't that long ago, geologically speaking, that you could walk to the Farallon Islands.
That's because there was no San Francisco Bay just 10,000 years ago. Here are the Farallones today. Watch what happens as we turn back the clock 1,000 years a second. Sea levels become lower. The bay has disappeared. And by 11,000 years ago, you could have hiked to the Farallon Islands. As it turns out, that might have been a nice option.
By 4:45 a.m., we're passing under that. Sorry that the shot is shaky, but as soon as you get outside of the Golden Gate, the ocean does one thing every time. Man, it makes waves.
It's probably one of the hardest places in the United States to get to.
And yet, it was one of the first places they came to during the gold rush. And they came here for breakfast. Long before Petaluma, the Farallones were the egg capital of the world. Men would come here and collect the eggs.
And this is where those eggers lived.
These eggs that were being collected on the island were being sold on the streets of San Francisco for $1 a dozen, and that's an $1850.
When egging began, there were more than 1 million birds here.
And they were brought down to less than 10,000.
But what one generation destroyed, another restored.
We actually have over 200,000 murres breeding on the Farallones again, and it's a real testament to the ability of a species to recover if given a chance. Oh, hello.
Russ Bradley heads up PRBO's work on the island.
All right. It's a red Zodiac, 16 feet, one person aboard.
And this man is living his dream.
I wanted to be a marine biologist since when I was about 3 years old. Yeah. It's been a part of my life since I was very small. I grew up on an island, flipping over rocks, looking at crabs, seeing seals and whales, and just being absolutely captivated. And despite many voices saying, you can't do that, I think it's a passion. All right. So here we have a little aqua trick. Yeah. I've spent over 1,200 nights on this island, and I still see things every day that continue to amaze me. I'm extremely lucky to be able to be in this place.
Now nearing sunrise, the waves get rough as we head deeper into the open ocean.
Now, how much are you getting paid for doing this?
This is a free gig. I donate the boat, I donate the fuel, I donate my time, I pay my crewmen, I donate that also.
It's all part of the amazing tradition of what is known as the Farallon Patrol.
It's a group of volunteer skippers who bring supplies out to the Farallones, resources, scientists, food, garbage in, mail, all the particularities that they need to survive.
The Simba itself made some of the first trips. The ship's log records ferrying scientists over to the Farallones 40 years ago.
The owner of the boat at that time was Charlie Merrill, and he was one of the founding members of the Farallon Patrol, and I believe he ran something around 80 trips.
Charlie was a mentor of yours?
Yeah, he was looking for a young kid to do hard work, and I have a good work ethic, so he put me to work forever. Everybody laughs about it now, because in the end, I learned a lot.
Paul eventually bought Simba from Charlie, and when Charlie died, he got his last wish. His ashes were spread over the ocean from the stern of the boat that had made 80 volunteer trips to the Farallones.
And you continue the tradition.
I do.
Now 8 a.m., 4 hours out from Sausalito. It's cold, it's wet, and worst of all,
It's been a little choppy this morning. There's a 7 to 9 foot swell running, which isn't too bad, but the wind waves at 3 to 5 feet have been a little aggressive. We've been tossed and turned pretty well.
And I want to tell you, I took seasick medication. Dave Stoelk took seasick medication. The result?
the nutrient value of the Pacific Ocean was suddenly enriched. The birds seemed happy, and so were we, when finally, over the towering swell, we spy the Farallon Islands. The amazing story of how we get from here
See you on the island.
to there
The only way to fly.
after a break.
Welcome back to Eye in the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney, and we continue with our trip to the Farallon Islands. Let's recap.
A 3 a.m. alarm.
Oh, God.
A 4 a.m. silent passage out the Sausalito Channel, and a 5 a.m. passage under the Golden Gate. All done under the watchful eye of Captain Paul Dines.
Good to have you along.
Thank you, Captain Paul.
You bet.
The mission to get supplies and scientists out to the distant Farallon Islands.
It takes quite a while to get there because it's up the face of every wave and down the backs.
Finally, after a turbulent 4-hour journey through choppy seas and a mishap or two, ladies and gentlemen, finally looming on the horizon, the Farallon Islands.
You think you're looking at 120 rocky acres of misty, wet, wetter, wettest, ocean-going life spread across a small chain of offshore islands.
But what you're really looking at is a slice of the Sierra Nevada poking its head above the Pacific. Oh, it's incredible. That's part of the Sierra Range. It was ripped off by the Great San Andreas Fault System 20 million years ago. It has been moved north over that period of time until today. What's sticking out of the ocean is a slice of the Sierra Nevada mountains swimming 27 miles offshore outside the Golden Gate. Isn't that amazing? Now it's time for us to get off.
We're ready for you guys to come on down.
We'll use a safe boat to get on the island, and we won't be using a dock because there isn't one. They've always had to hoist people and supplies onto the Farallones.
It's not easy getting on this island.
No, it is not it is not easy at all.
There's a whole lot of action that's about to start.
Don't worry, it's only a $50,000 camera. It's very challenging and difficult just to even get on and off of the place.
Now, Sean.
The boat's loaded up with the supplies, ready to make the final 200 yards to Southeast Landing.
All right, we're ready to go, sir.
See you on the island. So how many times did you throw up?
Twice. So far, I'll be honest, so far I'm not having fun.
And the adventure's not over yet. With the Farallones looming closer, it's easy to see why one stormy Christmas, supplies had to be airlifted here. This aerial photograph shows the parachute, the supplies hanging from it, including 2 Christmas trees, and below, the 17 people who had gone without fresh food for weeks, all because of one geologic fact.
The rocks are so steep, there's no way to put a dock in, so this is how we get on board the island. We are actually airlifted by cable.
Fish and wildlife operators watch from the island, operating a huge crane that swings out over the ocean. A cable suspended from the crane is attached to the raft, and we're plucked off the whitecaps, pulleys straining to lift us over the 40-foot cliffs.
The only way to fly.
The giant arm swings us in a giant arc above the surf.
And just like that, we arrive finally at the Farallon Islands.
In the right season, it's easy to see why it's the largest seabird colony around. But we've got work to do. The supplies are offloaded. Researchers get their first look at fresh food in 2 weeks.
Ooh, apple.
We'll hear the chilling words.
We have a great white shark attack.
And Dave Stoelk will shortly ask about
Island romance.
Island romance.
But at the moment, I have bad news.
That's all the time we have for tonight. Now, tomorrow night, we're going to learn more about what the scientists are finding out here, and also, what's it like to live on the Farallon Islands? All tomorrow night, and in the meantime, if you want more information about what you've seen during the course of tonight's show, log on to our website, cbssf.com/Eye on the Bay. You can also like us on Facebook. For now, from 27 miles from downtown San Francisco, I'm Brian Hackney. Really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you from here tomorrow night.
Promotional consideration and a special thanks to Captain Paul Dines of SF Bay Adventures. If you want an adventure on the bay, go by sfbayadventures.com. Just 30 miles outside the Golden Gate, few humans are allowed on this ancient archipelago. But tonight, you're coming along with us as we take a rare peek into a strange world just beyond San Francisco Bay.
Welcome to Eye on the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney as we continue tonight with Eye on the Bay's look at the Farallon Islands.
On the clearest of days, you can spot them just off the coast, but they're not as close as they appear. On a previous show, we documented our not-so-pleasure cruise 4 hours out to the Farallones.
How many times did you throw up?
Twice.
Me too.
Once there, it's hard to even get on the islands. Tonight, we meet a handful of scientists who live on the isolated isle to protect sensitive species.
So it's like salmon spawning. They come back to the same place.
Yep.
And to monitor some of the most shark-infested waters on the planet.
There's a shark, there it is.
You see that?
Oh yeah, huge.
It's one thing for wildlife to live in this wilderness, but correspondent Dave Stoelk asks, how do the scientists live here?
You're basically marooned on an island.
In desolation.
With the same people for months.
But first, what exactly do the scientists do here on the Farallon Islands?
We're your Gotta Get Away for the Day guide, your Let's Try a New Place to Eat guide, even your Hey, It Really Happened Here guide. We're the tour guide with you in mind. Eye on the Bay.
Welcome back to Eye on the Bay, where we have our eye on the Farallon Islands, some 27 miles outside the Golden Gate. I'm Brian Hackney.
Now, the Farallones are federally protected. No humans are allowed to step foot on the islands except for a few researchers like Russ Bradley from the Point Reyes Bird Observatory, or PRBO, who spent a lot of their time, years at a time, doing this.
And we can see its wings are pretty developed.
Monitoring the wildlife and documenting copious amounts of scientific measurements. And all that background data is recorded against a backdrop, a surreal yet beautiful landscape.
To the rightmost one, the large one, is called Sugar Loaf, and then the small one to the left of it is called Chocolate Chip.
Arch Rock and Finger Rock. It's a moonscape. There's hardly any vegetation. Years ago, they tried to plant trees just to liven up the barren island, and just one survived.
This is a Monterey pine tree that's been here for many, many decades, but it has been completely shaped by the northwest winds. It really shows you how severe the weather out here can be and what it takes to survive.
So then, how do humans survive?
So, scientists study how the wildlife live here. But how do the scientists themselves live on the islands?
Correspondent Dave Stoelk spent a day on the forlorn Farallones.
This is basically our living room. This is where we come to hang out and sit in the chairs and enjoy free time. We also do the weather here.
It's a household unlike any other.
Well, not too many living rooms have a weather station.
No, that's true.
Liz Ames is an intern for the Farallon Patrol.
So these are the flags of the Farallon Patrol.
Volunteers who rotate on and off southeast Farallon Island, each group staying for weeks on end in an old lightkeeper's house.
You're basically marooned on an island.
Correct. With the same people for months.
Every day they are required to do research.
So this is our job board. This basically tells us what we have to do every single day.
Without a single day off, not even weekends. And when they're done with scientific chores, they got to come back home to do chores.
Everyone has to chip in around here.
Oh yeah, everybody does everything. That's a blueberry coffee cake.
They take turns cooking.
It's a sour cream coffee cake. We all kind of tend to make good dinners around here because if you don't, people get unhappy.
Supplies come every few weeks, provisions run low, fresh food is a luxury.
That's about it. That's what we have left. We're out of lettuce. We are out of heavy whipping cream, which is really sad.
Could that stop all research here on the island?
It could. It's not mine. So that is our bread freezer. We freeze most of our bread to prevent it from getting moldy.
That's because it's almost always damp on the foggy Farallones, which is also why you see laundry strung inside the house everywhere in the house.
Which, as you can feel, it doesn't work very well.
No, it's still damp.
So this is the bathroom.
Fresh water is brought to the island and strictly rationed. Each intern is limited to 1 shower per week and...
Because of our septic system, we can't throw any toilet paper in the toilet. It all goes right there in that box.
The job board says whose duty it is to take out the duty.
It's just part of living on the island.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Well, Liz, what do you guys do for fun?
What do we do for fun? We read books, we play games, we watch TV occasionally.
Except there's no reception out here, so they watch a lot of movies. Hitchcock's The Birds is a favorite among bird watchers. Intern Dan Maxwell tunes into Giants games when he can.
Must be a night game today.
We play ping pong. I'd actually never played ping pong before I came here.
They throw darts, but surprisingly not at each other, what with 6 people cooped up in the same house, stranded on an island.
We're a pretty lovable bunch, I think.
I mean, occasionally maybe somebody forgets to do their dishes and you have to do them for them, but that's part of living in a house with anybody. That is our gull juju box.
And the researchers also have fun with their research.
You'll be walking around the island and you will find some random object.
Gulls swallow these things on the mainland.
Some kind of little stuffed toy.
And then fly 30 miles out to the Farallones to throw them back up.
This is an iPhone case.
A lighter.
The researchers collect them not for research.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Vampire teeth.
Just for kicks.
So somebody's ID ended up on the Farallon Islands.
Mm-hmm.
Some might say this God-forsaken place is for the birds, which do come back here every season. It's just a wonder humans keep coming back.
There's no day you wake up and you go, I just want out of here.
No.
I've been bummed that I'm leaving from time to time.
Really?
You want to stay a few more days or weeks or something like that, yeah.
Next, how scientific research on the Farallones is helping the entire planet.
That's next, as Eye in the Bay's exploration of the Farallones continues after a break. Welcome back to Eye in the Bay. I'm Brian Hackney as we continue with our expedition to the Farallones. So why is San Francisco in the background? Well, just to make the point that on a clear day, you can see the Farallones all the way from the city. When people see the Farallones at that great distance, what should they be thinking about those islands?
Well, I think that they should be thinking that they're lucky to have one of the most important wildlife areas in the country and even in the world.
Scientists come to the Farallones to study wildlife. The most prolific wildlife are birds. The Point Reyes Bird Observatory, or the PRBO, sends researchers to live here to study Farallon waterfowl.
How long has PRBO actually been studying stuff on the island?
Well, PRBO has been on the Farallon Islands every day continuously since 1968, so well over 40 years now. Wow.
The Farallones are federally protected. No humans are allowed to step foot on the islands, except for authorized personnel. And the few PRBO researchers who, like Russ Bradley, spend a lot of their time, years at a time, doing this. Bird watching and bird counting. And there are a lot to count.
We have over 300,000 seabirds that breed on the island, and many of them you never see above ground.
The tiny Farallon Islands are the world's 6th largest breeding ground for birds.
They actually breed in holes in the ground, like this burrow, which is right here, which is the normal site where the auklets breed.
Cassin's auklet, a species of small seabirds, flock from all over the Pacific Ocean to these scant specks of land to rest and reproduce.
And we can see its wings are pretty developed. It's almost ready to go and head out to the sea pretty soon.
And the PRBO tries to keep track of every single bird. Everyone is banded and then recounted when it returns every year, sometimes to the same burrow.
So it's like salmon spawning. They come back to the same place.
Yep.
Gulls also come back here, each one, year after year, decade after decade, to occupy the same 6-inch by 6-inch space.
And each of those white wooden stakes is a nest site of a fallow bird that was banded as a chick.
The gulls often arrive with baggage, bones.
The two most common bones that you find on this island are not what you would normally expect.
Chicken bones and spare ribs. The Farallones are littered with them. Gulls gobble up the human treats on the mainland and then fly 30 miles out to sea and deposit them here.
It's just as easy as for them to do that than to find their own food. So maybe it's lazy gulls.
The PRBO also monitors the burrowing owl, which live amongst the rocks. To catch them and tag them, the PRBO uses giant nets and an iPod. How many of you have owl mating sounds on your playlist? The Farallones, one of the most ecologically sensitive spots on the planet. Like Darwin's famous Galapagos Islands, there are species that live only here.
The Farallon arboreal salamander.
But why? Why count every single bird every single day for decades?
Part of the real uniqueness of the Farallones is our long-term data sets. The fact that we've had people here every day for 40 years, that we've followed pretty much standard protocols through time and never missed a year in collecting data.
Which means nowhere else on Earth have humans been able to study how the environment
changes we're seeing due to climate change and changes in the ocean
impact wildlife over a long period of time. The Farallones are a small piece of a great big puzzle.
It allows us to address some of the really complex questions that are important for everyone.
When we come back, why the waters off the Farallones are among the most dangerous on Earth.
There's the shark, there it is. Oh yeah, huge.
After a break. Welcome back to Eye on the Bay as you look at some sea lions down there on the rocky shoals of the Farallon Islands. I'm Brian Hackney. Now, conservationists are working here to preserve wildlife most of the time, but there's one little creature running around that they'd sure like to see a whole lot less of.
The common mouse.
And many hundreds of years ago, house mice were introduced somehow by someone on a ship that was traveling here, and they've lived here for a while.
They now number in the hundreds of thousands, hidden in little holes, honeycombed all over the Farallones.
What are plague levels of mice, some of the highest densities of mice recorded in the world?
The tiny rodent upset the balance of nature, so conservationists are in the process of kicking all those mice off the island.
One of our big missions on the island with PRBO and the Fish and Wildlife Service is to help restore the island to a more pristine condition. So we're going to step inside and see what we can see.
The goal is to preserve the natural order. Take the sea lions, for instance.
So we're just going to open up a window here, and we don't open it all the way because
we don't want to scare the sea lions.
Yeah, we don't want to scare the sea lions. But
over the years, fishermen killed sea lions who stole fish from their nets. The population dwindled. Meanwhile, fur traders went after the elephant seals.
They disappeared from the island.
They did. They were gone from the island for probably almost a century. The whole species was almost hunted to extinction.
By the mid-1970s, not long after the Farallones were closed to the public, the seals returned to the islands. They and the sea lions now thrive. Nature is back in order, but that doesn't always mean nature behaves in an orderly fashion.
And they are shark food.
They are.
There's the shark, there it is. Oh yeah, huge.
Turns out the Farallones also have one of the largest concentrations of great white sharks in all the world's oceans. So many, in fact, that tour boats offer shark dives, and the great white likes to chomp on elephant seals. We witnessed a shark attack from afar.
It's a mix of fear and attraction.
The PRBO also monitors and records shark attacks.
It wasn't super big. I'm guessing, we talked about it a little bit, I think about 14 feet.
14 feet, all right. Thank you very much for that info.
That's life on the Farallones. Strangely beautiful, desolate, lonely, dangerous, fragile.
So that even though people can't visit the island in person, we can try to let them know what's going on here, what's happening here with the science, and what's happening with the animals, and what's happening with the recovery.
So they can see a lot of it on television, online.
Yeah.
And that way you don't get seasick.
It's true. That is true.
All the way. Here we go. Yep, just like that. We're on our way back to San Francisco.
Except we're already in San Francisco.
I guess that's true, but we're going to go back to the San Francisco where our office is. Hope you enjoyed the look at the scientist's office.
If you want more information on tonight's show, log on to cbssf.com/Eye on the Bay and like us on Facebook.
Thanks to everybody at the Point Reyes Bird Observatory. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha from the Farallones!
Promotional consideration and a special thanks to Captain Paul Dines of SF Bay Adventures.